Hi everyone, thank you for clicking. Today we're going to be analysing what happened in the WTCS Women's Final in Edmonton this weekend. This race will be the final in the 2021 WTCS series, and for all you purists out there who hate change, we're back to the old trusty Olympic distance format. Being the series finale, Edmonton would offer 25% more points than the previous races, with the winner taking 1,250 points and the series leader at the end of the day taking the world champion crown. Here is how the series standings looked before the race, with points totals made up from the athletes' 3 best results of the 4 previous races this year in Yokohama, Leeds, Tokyo and Montreal. As you can see, Olympic champion Flora Duffy took a sizable lead into Edmonton of 467 points, meaning a 6th place finish would guarantee her the world title. Behind Duffy, you have Spivey and Kingma, whose points totals are so close that whoever finished higher in Edmonton would beat out the other in the series standings. Then a bit further behind you have Nib, Caldwell and Zafiras, who would have to put a few positions between themselves and those ahead in the standings in order to move up into the series podium. So not only is there some big money and the final podium to race for, there's also the series standings on offer as well, which should add some interesting racing dynamics to our usual. Right, so on with the race. It would be a beach start with athletes choosing their start position in series ranking order. The top 10 were wearing these magic yellow hats to make them easy to spot. Flora Duffy chose the left side of the start, with Taylor Spivey choosing to start right next to her, as well as Zafiras. Kingma, however, chooses the opposite end of the pontoon, as does Taylor Nib and a few of the other top 10. I imagine this choice by Kingma is to put a bit of space between herself and closest rival Spivey to avoid dragging her around the swim. You see 3 main heads form very early in the swim, led by Duffy and Kingma on either ends, with Lopez off to a fast start in the middle. As the wide start has funneled into a more narrow stretch, the group form into one with Lopez at the front. And as the group passes the U-turn point, although everyone is still in the group, it's very stretched out, which demonstrates the importance of that fast start and reaching the narrowing points and the turnaround towards the front of the pack. Just after the start of the second swim lap, we see Taylor Nib make her first of a few very decisive moves as she moves into the swim lead ahead of Lopez. Nib is comfortably at the front with the other yellow cappers, getting a bit of a draft from Lopez, so she is clearly trying to get a bit of a gap or thin out this group down to a few athletes for a breakaway pack on the bike, a tactic that has served Nib very well this year. Nib doesn't manage to get a clean break, but she does succeed in stringing out the field quite well. Upon exiting the water, Nib has Spivey, the red arrow, and Kingma, the blue arrow, very close, but has managed to put some distance into Flora Duffy, the green arrow, in the back. Nib, Kingma and Spivey take a slight gap through T2 and onto the bike. It's a very slender margin, but there are 3 strong athletes here who all have the incentive to push ahead and not allow Duffy back in. The bike course was 8 laps on a circuit that was basically up and down this hill. Looking on Strava, it appears to be around 7% for 600 metres or so. Nothing crazy, but certainly an opportunity to attack or make others suffer. And again, Nib makes a decisive move to surge ahead of her 2 breakaway companions. I say surge because it's not necessarily an attack. Nib looks quite comfortable and remains in her TT position. Meanwhile, Spivey and Kingma don't appear to try particularly hard to catch Nib. Spivey is out of the saddle here, which I think is a mistake. I know she's more of a compact athlete, but they're probably travelling in excess of 30 kilometers an hour up this hill, and you're throwing away watts and speed by standing up, especially as Nib remains in her aero position. Only a few seconds after the surge, Nib has opened up a decent gap on Spivey and Kingma, and by the time they reach the top of the hill, Kingma and Spivey have been swallowed up by the other chasers, who are 20 seconds back on Nib already. With a gap this big, Nib's decision is basically made up for her, and she commits to her solo breakaway, even though it will mean riding the whole 40k on her own. Behind you can see some of the series finale dynamics play out in the chase group of 10. Duffy, who is the strongest cyclist in this group, has no real reason to chase down Nib. She just needs to come 6th to be crowned world champion, so there is no point in burning matches on the front when there is no guarantee she'll catch Nib, when she could save that effort to ensure she finishes in the top 6 on the run. Kingma is the main one that loses out here, as a Nib victory would likely push Kingma off the series podium, and we can see Kingma on the front here trying to get some sort of chase of Nib going. However, the gap to Nib continues to go out, and after 1 lap she has 30 seconds on the chase group, with another group a further 30 seconds back, and that gap continues growing at a rate of 20 seconds or so per lap. After 5 laps, Nib has 2 minutes on the chasing 10. Nib likely knows that she will need 90 seconds to ensure the victory, so it's looking very good for her. She continues to push on, rarely breaking her TT position. At this point, the chasers are well clear of the pack behind them, and if there wasn't any incentive to ride down Nib before, there's even less now. With 3 laps left on the bike, I think time is running out for Maya Kingma here. Based on previous run times, her best shot at beating Spivey and taking the series podium spot is to get a gap on the bike and hold on for the run. I'm not sure if Duffy would have had too much motivation to cover any attacks from Kingma, and I don't think Spivey would have been able to either. However, we don't see any more attacks, and the chasers come into T2 together a full 2 minutes 45 behind Nib, who at this point is probably wondering if she took a wrong turn because of how far ahead she is. Kingma manages a fast T2 and is onto the run fast, opening at 30 meters or so on the rest, A bold move, but I think this is a slight sign of weakness. If she was confident of beating Spivey over 10k, you wouldn't be trying to win it in the first 500 meters. Meanwhile, Nib is just chilling, probably thinking of what she's going to title her Strava upload. Kingma is reeled in behind with Duffy and Perriot opening a gap for the podium positions on the day. Kingma, again, tries to break Spivey by surging ahead, but as before is reeled in by Spivey, Caldwell and Lindemann. You have to praise Kingma's efforts to break Spivey here and then hang on to this group once caught, but I can't help but think she could have been smarter in how she used her surges and efforts, either committing right from the start of the run or waiting to surge close to the finish. Ahead, Perriot takes advantage of Duffy's requirement to only come 6th to win the series and moves into 2nd, whilst even further ahead, Nib is still relaxed, probably thinking of that big series final check at the end. Onto the final lap for this group, and you can see Katie Saveras coming back into the picture with an extremely well-paced run. Spivey at the front is cracking her knuckles, preparing to do anything to stop Kingma from stealing her podium spot. This motorbike, who I'm convinced had a bet on Saveras to take a series podium spot, almost takes out these three, who aren't best pleased. Up front, and Nib takes the win in absolutely dominant style, securing 2nd on the podium in the series as a result. Perriot comes home in 2nd and Duffy in 3rd, who also becomes world champion and the first to do so in the same year as winning Olympic gold. The battle behind for the 3rd series podium spot between Kingma and Spivey is still raging on. Spivey is glued to Saveras' back, using her for a bit of a draft, and this is actually the last we see of them until the finishing shoot as the cameras cut to see Taylor Nib take the tape. But when we do see them emerge into shot, it's Spivey who's come out on top, likely following in Katie Saveras' draft until the right moment. Well deserved from Spivey, who held her nerve throughout Maya Kingma's surges on the run to time her big effort well. Thank you very much for watching to the end. I hope you enjoyed the highlights and the analysis. If you did, please hit that subscribe button for more triathlon content, and let me know what you thought of the race down below in the comments.